whole nose of that aircraft is full of radar. In fact, we've got another radar set that would fit in there in the museum. This thing was unusual because it could stay up for about 4 hours, and that was used to escort our B-29s up to the Yalu River during the Korean War. These big blobs on the wing are full of fuel.
Fuel tanks?
Neat aircraft. A buddy of mine used to fly them up at Vanderbilt when he was on exchange duty when I was with the Marines, and he just loved the thing. Then this is the F-86. This is the H model with the 420mm cannon. The early ones had 650 caliber machine guns, and that was our 10-to-1 kill ratio over Korea, over the MiGs. Then the yellow-nosed one is the F-84, the Thunder Jet. We've got two of them here. This was a light fighter bomber in the Korean War. Subsonic, of course, with straight wings. You need swept wings to get through the sound barrier. By the astronauts, because like they still do, they use the T-37. It's kind of handy to knit from Houston down to the Cape. Still outside defense again, on the right is the A-26 for an attack aircraft, was used as a night intruder in the Korean War. And then on the left here is the last of the F-86s. This is the L model, and this is the other one that was designed to meet the Russian threat. It was based up in Alaska. That black nose has a radar gun sight in there. Instead of guns, they've got 24 2.75-inch rocket pod, and they can fire 6, 12, or 24. And it also had an afterburner down at the back end. And an afterburner basically is squirting fuel into the hot exhaust, and then you ignite it, and it doubles the thrust of the aircraft. Really makes it go fast. But it's very expensive on fuel. And as a result of that, it could only stay up for about 45 minutes. But the theory was they might shoot down 2 or 3 and get back on the ground, go up and do it again. And then this one here is the F-84 Thunder Streak. This is the big brother to the yellow-nosed one, and it was a standard fighter in NATO during the Cold War, and the Belgian, Dutch, French, Italian, just about everybody was flying it, including the Americans. And you get a better view of the FB-111 there. That was the standard fighter bomber. Became famous when President Reagan ordered a bunch of them flying out of Lakenheath in England, and they went down and bombed Gaddafi. Had to fly down around France because the French wouldn't let them fly over land with weapons on board, and they went nuclear, just ordinary bombs. Good aeroplane. The interesting thing is, started off live in England, and if you ever saw the movie the Dam Busters, where a guy called Barnes Wallace developed a bouncing bomb that would bounce on the water, then hit the dam, go down and blow a hole in it. Very good movie, and very accurate and very honest. Anyway, Wallace, when I was lecturing at the college, he used to come up and he was designing a transport aircraft with a variable swept wing. And what he used, it was the technique when they saw the B-47 with the podded engines, and it only took about 7 horsepower to move the wings forward for the whole jet transport. And his aim was it would be capable of landing 60 miles away to take a cricket team from England down to play in Bournemouth, and they'd take the same team to play in Australia. That was his concept with it. And half the money was supplied by the Brits and the other half by the Americans. They weren't testing anything this big. And in those days we didn't know much about supersonic flight and on the effect on individuals, so they had an unmanned aircraft that they used, and they did a fixed wing section of it with the wings the way it looks like that one is right now, and they tested it, and it worked pretty well. There were 2 or 3 flights out of it, and one day the guy forgot to unlock the autopilot, and the thing flew straight off and dived into the North Atlantic, and the Brits pulled out of the deal, and they handed everything over to the Americans, and this was the end result. They got this damn good airplane. The Australians used them in Vietnam as well, and they were using them up until just on 2 years ago when they put them all to bed. It was a popular aircraft at air shows because they could dump fuel in this airplane, so they'd light the afterburner, then dump the fuel, and they'd get a 300-foot flame coming out the back of the airplane, and they just stole the thunder from everything else. It didn't matter. This thing looked that impressive. Jet, our first jet fighter sitting in the museum there. The whole engine is there. It's called the Whittle engine, designed by a guy in the Royal Air Force named Whittle. It's kind of an interesting story because the insulation on that, in the good old days, they used to wrap your cigarettes in packets with a light foil, and they had to get all these cigarette packets to get the foil out of it, and that's what they used for insulation when they were testing the engine. And this cutaway section of the engine is right there, kind of a neat idea as to what it was. The red painted bits were where the combustion chambers were. Here, 28 cylinder, 2 plugs per cylinder. So when you do a plug change, it takes a little longer than taking a little Civic into Jiffy Lube, that's for sure. And that's the type of engine we had on the C97, the big trans